The Minnesota Timberwolves are acquiring LaMelo Ball in one of the most talked about reported NBA deals of the 2026 offseason, and this breakdown covers what the reported trade involves and how it impacts both teams moving forward. This is a reported LaMelo Ball move from Charlotte to Minnesota involving Josh Green going the same direction, while Naz Reid heads to the Hornets along with multiple draft assets, and the entire structure of the deal has put both franchises under a spotlight. Minnesota receives LaMelo Ball and Josh Green, while Charlotte brings in Naz Reid, a 2033 unprotected first-round pick, 3 first-round pick swaps across 2028, 2029, and 2030, plus additional second-round picks in 2029, 2032, and 2033, which immediately signals a long-term shift in direction for both organizations rather than a short-term adjustment. What makes this even louder is the scale of the pick package, because that level of draft control stretching into 2033 shows how far ahead Charlotte is planning. LaMelo Ball enters this situation already established as one of the most productive young guards in the league, and his career starts back when Charlotte selected him 3rd overall in the 2020 NBA Draft, where he quickly turned that opportunity into the 2021 Rookie of the Year award before becoming an NBA All-Star in 2022. Across 303 career games, he has averaged 20.8 points, 7.3 assists, and 5.7 rebounds per game, and that production has kept him firmly in the conversation as a franchise-level creator whenever he is on the floor. The most recent season included in the report shows him averaging 20.1 points, 7.1 assists, and 4.8 rebounds while appearing in 72 games, which stood out because it represented one of his healthiest stretches compared to earlier years. That availability matters here, especially considering how injuries involving his ankle and foot have followed him throughout different stages of his career, shaping the way teams evaluate his long-term reliability. Financially, the situation is just as heavy because LaMelo Ball is tied to 3 remaining years on a 5-year designated rookie extension worth $203.9 million, and that contract stands as the largest in Charlotte Hornets history. That number doesn't just represent talent evaluation, it also defines how much risk and commitment a team has to take on when building around him. On the other side of the deal, Naz Reid leaves Minnesota after developing into one of the most important success stories in the organization, originally arriving in 2019 as an undrafted player before carving out a major role over time. His career totals sit at 11.9 points and 5.1 rebounds across 483 games, and his most recent season numbers rise to 13.6 points, 6.2 rebounds, and 2.2 assists, showing how consistent his production became as his role expanded. What changes the emotional weight of this move is that Reid was not just another rotation player in Minnesota, he became one of the most trusted and productive frontcourt pieces in their system, and his exit represents a clear sacrifice made in order to pursue a different level of star power in return. Josh Green also moves into Minnesota as part of the deal, bringing 4.3 points per game in his most recent season, mainly in a reserve wing role that adds depth rather than headline production. That inclusion reinforces how the trade is built around star value at the top while role pieces shift around the edges. Minnesota's motivation connects directly back to Anthony Edwards because the front office clearly wants another high-level creator next to him, and LaMelo Ball fits that need through his passing, transition play, and pick-and-roll creation that has defined his game since entering the league. What changed the urgency even more was the combination of roster uncertainty at point guard, including situations involving Mike Conley's free agency and Donte DiVincenzo's injury, which pushed the need for a long-term solution into focus. Charlotte's motivation runs in the opposite direction, focusing heavily on future flexibility and asset accumulation, using Naz Reid as a proven rotation player while stacking draft picks and swaps that extend deep into the next decade. That direction signals a shift toward building around younger pieces and long-term control rather than maintaining a roster centered on a single star. Charlotte's motivation runs in the opposite direction, focusing heavily on future flexibility and asset accumulation, using Naz Reid as a proven rotation player while stacking draft picks and swaps that extend deep into the next decade. That direction signals a shift toward building around younger pieces and long-term control rather than maintaining a roster centered on a single star. Reports also indicate that other teams, including Toronto and Portland, showed interest before Minnesota ultimately secured the framework of the deal, which places emphasis on how competitive the market was around LaMelo Ball. That competition adds context to why the final package became so large and heavily weighted toward future draft assets. When everything is put together, the central debate becomes unavoidable, because Minnesota is committing major draft capital and parting with a key rotation player in exchange for a high-upside guard whose talent is undeniable, but whose injury history has shaped his career narrative. That tension sits at the center of the entire move. And as the situation stands, the outcome splits into two clear possibilities. If LaMelo Ball stays healthy, Minnesota gains a second elite creator next to Anthony Edwards and immediately raises its ceiling in the Western Conference. But if the availability concerns return, the cost of the trade will define the discussion for years. Either way, this reported move puts LaMelo Ball directly into the middle of Minnesota's future, and every decision from here shifts around that reality.